All right, so let's talk about 5 things you need to know when buying a condo in San Diego or anywhere for that matter. So stay tuned. So we're going to talk about everything you need to know when buying a condominium in San Diego or any market for that matter. But real quick, if you're thinking about moving to, from, or within San Diego, don't be shy about getting a hold of me. I'm getting tons of emails, calls, and texts, and I absolutely love it. If there's anything I can do to help you with your real estate needs, I will 100% make it happen. And if you want to learn everything about San Diego, like where to eat, work, sleep, and play, go ahead and click subscribe and make sure to tap that little bell. That way you're notified every single time I upload a new video about San Diego. All right, so if you've been thinking about buying a condominium, maybe it's going to be your first home purchase, it can be a great option because they're usually, for the most part, less expensive. Whatever the reason may be, stop paying someone else's mortgage. They're an excellent option, but there's a few things that you definitely need to know. These are going to be 5 tips you probably didn't think of, and you definitely don't want to learn them the hard way. Okay, tip number 1 is going to be check the pet policy. Not all homeowners associations, basically, which you automatically become a part of when you buy into a complex that's governed by a homeowners association, but not all condominiums and HOA rules and restrictions allow for all types or certain numbers of pets. There can be breed restrictions, there can be weight restrictions, there can be restrictions as to the type of pet, there can be restrictions as to the number of pets. There's a lot of different restrictions that you need to be on the lookout for. If you're anything like me, your pets are practically part of your family. My pets are part of my family. You don't want to run into this issue after you buy a condominium in a homeowners association governed complex. Tip number 2 is going to be, if you plan to lease out your condo, let's say you want to do like an Airbnb part of the time, make sure the HOA rules allow for shorter term leases. Most condominiums, or at least a lot of the condominiums in downtown San Diego, for example, they have specific rules that do not allow for short-term rentals. Most rule restrictions are going to be in place that the minimum lease allowed on a property or your condo is going to be 30 days or more on a lease. But most of them you're going to find are maybe 6 months. I've even seen a year. So if you're planning to buy a condominium, do an Airbnb short-term type of rental situation, you're going to find that it's probably not feasible on a lot of the condos. It definitely makes sense on paper in a lot of cases, but you just can't find a complex in a lot of the cases that allow for that. Okay, so tip number 3 is going to be, let's say you don't like carpet. Who does? You want to install maybe some new tiles, maybe some wood flooring, maybe some laminate, which is extremely popular right now. But you got to know that there are certain rules and restrictions in certain buildings or condo complexes that restrict the type of flooring that's allowed. The reason being is that in a lot of situations, you're going to have neighbors above you, below you, sides of you. So noise becomes an issue. So you might find, and even they can change in a particular condo in the same building. One unit might be allowed to install, let's say, laminate flooring, whereas the one next door can't. And it might be because, let's say, there's somebody that is below you in your condo, or the one that's not allowed to install the laminate, whereas the one that is, there's nothing below. So it's not going to create a sound issue. So definitely check those restrictions on flooring types that are allowed. This can save you a major headache once you complete a purchase on a condo. All right, so tip number 4. This is going to seem like common sense, but it doesn't apply in this situation. Here's a good example. You're looking for a 2-bedroom condominium in the city. You assume with 2 bedrooms, you get 2 parking spots. That is not the case. You need to check the details before you buy a condo in the city or anywhere else for that matter, and make sure if you need 2 parking spots that it has 2 parking spots, or you have the ability to maybe rent a parking spot or something nearby. I see it all the time that condos, 2 bedrooms, it's going to have 1 parking spot. Sometimes you'll have a 1-bedroom condo that has 2 parking spots. There's even condominiums that don't have any parking. And on top of that, you probably want to check what type of parking, because there's going to be subterranean parking in condos a lot of the time. And if that's the case, sometimes you'll have side-by-side parking. Other times you'll have tandem style. Or let's say you drive a souped up F-250, right? And the parking spot in the condo you just bought is on the 3rd level underground, and it's a compact car size spot. That's going to be another major problem you can run into if you haven't checked beforehand. Make sure to check out the parking situation before you let the ink hit the paper. Okay, so tip number 5, and this is really important, is you need to check the amount on the monthly fees or the HOA monthly required payment. The reason is these fees can vary. I've seen amounts that are actually more expensive than the actual mortgage in some cases. When that happens and you're dealing with a situation where you want to buy a condo with a higher HOA fee, that cuts into your affordability. Not only is that going to be potentially more difficult on you per month, because you're paying that per month, you're paying the mortgage, the more expensive HOA. When you're in the purchasing process, sometimes that can kill your mortgage, your loan. Okay, so when I look at HOA monthly payments, I kind of break it down into 2 major parts. The first thing is going to be the actual amount, and if that amount is projected to change, there might be an assessment coming to maybe fix a roof, fix a community area, update, it could be anything. But you want to be on the lookout for planned assessments. Almost all condo complexes are going to have assessments at some point, or what the HOA does is they carry reserves, anticipating certain assessments, so that way you can avoid an assessment. But you want to know if an assessment is on the radar and if it's upcoming, because that's going to be added to your monthly payment. Okay, so the second part of that is actually breaking down what that monthly fee includes. Let's say it's on the higher end at first glance, but you look a little closer and maybe it's got other things wrapped in there that you'd be paying for otherwise, but you don't have to pay for because you're paying the higher HOA fee. A good example would be maybe utilities. Let's say you have a higher HOA fee, but your water and your gas is included. That's going to make your monthly HOA fee higher, but it's also going to pull down your monthly utility fees. It can be good or bad, but it's definitely worth getting a breakdown and seeing exactly what's included. All right, so hopefully you found those 5 tips useful. And don't forget, if you're thinking about moving to, from, or within San Diego, don't be shy about getting a hold of me. I'm getting tons of emails, calls, and texts, and I absolutely love it. If there's anything I can do to help you reach your real estate goals, I will 100% make it happen. And I'll see you on the next video.